Central Expressway is one of the busiest highways in the entire Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. With this becoming the first highway ever built in the DFW area, this highway set the standard for future highways in DFW. Even though this highway is not the most well-known highway in DFW, it is one of the key highways that connects southern suburbs like Plano, Richardson, Allen, and McKinney, among others. What's going on, everybody? My name is Cool Titanium 68, and today we're starting a new series diving into different highways in the DFW area. Starting today with Central Expressway, DFW's first highway. Now, a little bit of background into this highway. Located on the southern portion of US Highway 75, this serves as an important thoroughfare for a lot of suburbs in the DFW area. Now, because this serves cities like Plano, Allen, Fairview, McKinney, Melissa, Anna, and even going farther north into, I forgot which county this is, it's a very, very important highway for most of DFW. There are other highways that directly connect the city of Dallas to northern suburbs through the Dallas North Tollway, so these include cities like West Plano, Frisco, Addison, Carrollton, and Farmers Branch, as well as stuff north of that, so including Prosper, Salina, and Gunter. Some of these people actually rely on 75 because why sit on the service roads and have to sit at lights where you can just hitch your way over onto 75, just take that all the way down to 635, and wham bam bibbidi bow, there you go. Since this is the only technical freeway that serves northern portion of DFW, people that choose not to pay to get on the toll road, you have to take extra time to take freeways and save money. Especially since if you don't have a toll tag within North Texas, it is technically double the price on major toll roads like Dallas North Tollway to drive on them. Now, first proposed in 1911, Central Expressway was originally proposed as a new alignment for US Highway 75. So for most of y'all that probably don't know, Highway 75 wasn't actually initiated till about 1926 when a lot of the US highways were like official. But at this time, 75 was like a 2-lane road, and that's pretty much with a lot of other highways in and around the country too. Now, to build this highway, it was suggested that they buy the right of way from the Houston and Texas Central Railroad. Now, this is kind of what most of Darts' red, and I believe it's the orange line that runs up through to Plano. So a lot of this used to be owned by the Houston and Texas Central Railroad, and the plan was, let's just buy this right of way and let's just build it on top. Now, the problem with this is the original owner of that, the Central Railway, was like, you ain't getting that stuff. We don't care. And for decades, and I'm not kidding, for decades, it was delayed. This was supposed to be a project that was going to start like back in the 20s, but it wasn't actually finished up until the 50s. Now, the first section of highway opened up in 1949, and this included starting right at San Jacinto, so the street which is right here. This is also where Ross Avenue is, so it starts right just south of Woodall Rogers, and it goes all the way to Fitzhugh Avenue. So not a long extension, but this was the very first portion that was built. Then the next portion was from Fitzhugh all the way up to Mockingbird, which opened up in 1952. And then in 56, it was actually extended from Mockingbird and SMU all the way up to Campbell Road. Yeah, that is a pretty big extension to open up in 4 years. Now, of course, they were already working on this simultaneously. It wasn't until about like 1969 and 1970 when Central Expressway was extended all the way up to, I believe it's this road here. So this is Panther Parkway, where Central Expressway ends, technically. It still took a long time to get this stuff built, especially since when this highway was opened up to Campbell Road in 56, it quickly became one of the most congested highways. When it opened up in 1950, it was considered to be an engineering marvel because it set the standard for highways in Texas, but just like that, it was considered to be one of the most poorly designed highways. Now, when you come south of DFW, or at least south of there, it was extended towards Hutchins all the way back in 1955. You might be thinking, what do you mean it was extended there in 55? There's no way, because that's where 45 is. And let me show you. So right as you pass Live Oak Street, this is where Central Expressway kind of breaks off from 345. Yes, this is 345 here between 75 and 45. Now it turns into Cesar Chavez, as it was renamed to Cesar Chavez Boulevard in 2011. But as you can see here, you got this whole huge intersection onto I-30. And then as you pass 45, it turns into SM Wright Freeway, which this was actually the direct connection onto 175 before they built this interchange here for 175. And then as you can see, Central Expressway is named south of 175, going all the way south to Hutchins, just south of the current I-45 and I-20 interchange. Now you guys might be thinking, well, why do they still have this available? I mean, why don't they just completely decommission 75? And honestly, they did. Right around this time in the mid-50s, they were already looking to expand at least US Highway 75 all the way down to Houston. I believe they were already working on that too. But then I think it was the Federal Highway Act of 1956 came around, when the actual federal funding was set aside for these highways. They decided to turn that into Interstate 45. And through a lot of stuff from between Houston and then I believe to another town south of Corsicana, 45 uses an alternative route than what 75 did. So from there, now it's known as State Highway 75. But then as you go north, the current route of 45 was already being used because, and I will show you guys this, at this time, they were already looking to expand 45, at least 75, from Ferris and Palmer and even in Ennis, and then even going down south into Corsicana. Because as you see here, once you get to the town of Streetman, this is State Highway 75, and it runs a different parallel route to 45. So they had already pretty much expanded 45 at this point when they were looking to add 75 to 45 in 1971. Now, one thing that they kind of had to do was rebuild 45 going up to downtown Dallas. I mean, as you can see here, Central Expressway is just a 4-lane boulevard going northward up to downtown Dallas. So what they did is they bought some right-of-way in through the Trinity River Forest and completely rebuilt that. They built an interchange with Loop 12. They built an interchange with Illinois Avenue. Of course, they built all this stuff. This is new. And he also rebuilt this into 345 and made a new interchange about couple thousand feet east of the Central Expressway and I-30 interchange. Now, that portion of Central Expressway is still in use today pretty well. And the reason for that is because whenever there is ice on 45, there is a very good amount of 45 between I-30 and I-20 that is just straight overpass. Right between MLK Boulevard in South Dallas going all the way up to I-30 is an entire bridge, and technically you could take this all the way up to 345 and say it's a bridge. But then once you get to, I believe it's Botham Jean, this is now an overpass going all the way over the Trinity River. Yeah, a really, really interesting path for over the Trinity River. And then the bridge doesn't actually end until Overton Road on the other side of the Trinity. So if this bridge freezes over, what people will do is they'll just exit at Botham Jean and then they'll get onto Central Expressway and take it all the way south back onto Overton, or if the traffic's really that bad, just take it all the way south onto 45. Because from here, you don't have to do like any sort of stoplights here to get onto 45. Now, back in the 80s, as traffic had gotten much, much worse, and more people were wanting to work inside downtown Dallas, they did have to look into completely rebuilding 75. Now, why would they have to do this? As I said before, when 75 was extended up to Richardson, it was already considered one of the worst designed highways, because they did not factor into account that both Richardson and North Dallas had expanded beyond expectations. This was also like about 11 years before, I think it was like 13 or 14 cities within the DFW area came together to actually think about regional transportation like we do nowadays, where we have a 25-year metro transportation plan that comes out every 5 years that goes up for the next 25. So for example, we're currently at the 2022 update of the Mobility 2045 plan, and next year in 2025 will be the Mobility 2050 plan, and we will have a video for that when that comes out, but just to see if there's any new changes between the 2022 update and the 2050 mobility plans. So back in the 80s, they were already looking into expanding 75, and one of the big things that they wanted to do was build overpass for most of this. Why would they do this? I mean, most places it's already kind of like an overpass. All they'd have to do is just raise it up a little bit and then just build walls on the side so that they could do that. I mean, with most intersections with a highway and a normal road, the road most of the time it's either going to be raised up or it's going to be like from the normal road or it's going to be a little bit below. So what they did is, at least at the time, they were initially going to put everything up as an overpass. But everyone was like, yeah, no, you don't do that. We don't like that, and we think it looks ugly. And the thing with a lot of these highway projects is you have to get your public input for this. You can't just go out and build a highway now without having to get public feedback from local residents. We'll talk about some of the other highway projects that are currently in planning stages, but when this came out, the two choices were to either build an elevated highway structure similar to how 345 is today, or trench it. And after I don't know how many public meetings, they decided instead of doing the overpass, they're just going to trench it underneath. And that's also part of the reason why today you can't really expand 75, is because it's trenched. So one of the big things that happened is before any sort of construction happened, they found out that when they were looking at the original designs for 75, they actually built it over a historically black cemetery called Freeman Cemetery. Now, Freeman Cemetery, I believe that's not the right picture. So Freeman Cemetery is right off of Lemon Avenue in 75. About a quarter of this was actually built over by US Highway 75, and they realized this while they were doing all of the survey work before you build the highway. You do survey work and then you build up your ground foundation and then you start laying down the concrete. But what happened is they found out that they had made 75 over Freedman Cemetery. So they brought in some archaeologists and they dug up about 1,500 black men, women, and children and reburied them at Freedman Cemetery, which is now a historical landmark within DFW. Now, what they've done, and I can actually scroll in a little bit more, this is kind of what 75 looks like today from Google Maps. Everything is pretty much trenched from Woodall Rogers all the way north up to just before 635. So it's right around Loop 12 is when it ends, just because there's no real need to keep it trenched all the way. So they rebuilt that. I think it was at about $1.5 billion in the 80s, which $1.2 billion-ish in 1980s money. That's a lot. That is a lot of money. So is there really much that they can do now? The answer is, well, yeah, not a ton, but there is some that is actually in the works. So one of these projects, what they're doing from north of 635 and going up to Sam Rayburn Tollway on 75, they're tearing out the barriers for the HOV lanes. So I'll just show you guys that. So just north of 635, to get onto these HOV lanes, you actually have to exit off of 635, and then you take these bridges that go up over 635 to get in here. I know this because I do this every time I come back from work. And this bridge here takes you to the west side of 635 from 75. But the barriers in the middle here have already been torn out, and it kind of goes all the way up to, and this technical part of the HOV lane technically goes all the way up to 75. But then once you get to Plano, there is a barrier, and I can actually show you. It's actually now barriers in the middle of the HOV lanes here. Not like, oh yeah, they've kept like the little temporary barriers that are bolted into the concrete. Like they actually brought in like center barriers kind of like this too, and they put it in the middle here because I think they're starting to do some of the electric vehicle infrastructure in through Plano, and then they'll eventually come south towards 635. But the plan for that is they are going to add what are known as technology lanes. So through non-peak hours, it is a strictly EV lane. So any electric vehicles like Teslas and anything that's run by batteries can use that lane. But then during rush hour, it's just a straight 5th lane, which is good because we do actually need that 5th lane, especially as traffic starts to increase. And then there are other plans to, like, at least for some highway construction, like right around the 75 and State Highway 121 interchange in Melissa, they're probably going to widen that to 8 lanes just for additional capacity. And then starting at County Road 370, just south of Van Alstyne, they're going to widen that from 4 to 6 lanes all the way up to Sherman, and they'll extend that eventually all the way up to the border with Oklahoma. But right now with this project in DFW, it's not technically a part of the Dallas district, because once you pass Panther Parkway, which is County Road 375, that is a part of Grayson County, which is actually a part of the Texas DOT's Harris District. So Grayson County, where Sherman and Denison are in, that's a part of the Paris District. And then Cook County, which is where Sanger and Gainesville are a part of, that's actually a part of the Wichita Falls District. Those are pretty much the only 2 highway projects that are in the works right now, just because they're kind of reworking parts of it in Allen, especially while they're rebuilding the intersection at Ridgeview, which I believe they've opened that up like not too long ago from when I made this video. But like most of the highway expansion through McKinney was like 10 years ago. Even going up through like Melissa and Anna was about 5 or 6 years ago. So a lot of that stuff that you would think needs to be done has pretty much already been done on 75. And they can't really expand south of 635, even though that is still one of the most congested parts of 75. They can't expand it because then you're looking at probably spending almost, 10 figures on completely tearing down the current portions of 75 and completely rebuilding it, which that alone I think would cause way too much of a traffic bottleneck that going into downtown Dallas, that it's not feasibly worth it to do that. But with that done, we're actually going to end the video right here. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video over Central Expressway. We're going to be going over different highway projects and just different highways in general within Dallas-Fort Worth area. Right now, we're going to start off with some of the different highways. Like right now, I think next week, we're going to start going over Interstate 35. And so we'll go over both Interstate 35 East, which goes through Dallas, and 35 West, which goes through Fort Worth. Then we'll start to talk about I-30, 635, I-20, Dallas North Tollway, Loop 9, and George Bush Turnpike, and some of the other big ones, and even A-20. But we're going to start with going over some of the major highways in DFW. I'm not sure exactly when we'll stop with the major highways, but then once we get to about US Highway 380 and then the eventual DFW Regional Outer Loop, that's when we're going to start taking a look at each different highway project, and we're going to discuss what the progress is with that. But if you guys like what you watched here, make sure you guys leave a like down below, subscribe as well, hit that bell icon so you don't miss any other future uploads, especially our mountain bike videos that come out every Tuesday and are recorded on every Friday, as I've said probably the last few times. This series is probably going to be one of my most favorite series because I have been wanting to do this for years. I just have not taken the time to get this done. If you guys want to, leave a comment talking about what other highways I should talk about within Dallas or Fort Worth or the whole area. I know there's a ton of highways and there is a ton of projects that are going on. So we're going to try and get to all of them, talk about the history of some of them too. But with that, I'm going to let y'all go. Have a nice day. Peace out.